Hi everyone, this is Daniel Scranton, and I'm making a bonus video here where I talk to you from my heart. And tonight's video, is about me and how I got to awaken in my 20s, and then how I started channeling in my 30s, in my 40s now. Grew up in Connecticut, in a small town outside of Hartford, and we were raised Catholic in my home. My mother was even a CCD teacher. For those of you who are Catholic, you know about CCD. I'm not even really sure what CCD stands for. But we went to church every single Sunday, without fail. But we weren't an overtly religious household. We didn't have, statues and crosses everywhere. I remember after my grandfather died, we inherited a wooden cross that he had in his house, but before that I don't think there was one. So it wasn't, even though it was something that we did, it wasn't something we spoke about. So as a child, I suffered from fear of God, basically. Not thinking that I was doing enough or good enough, or afraid that I was going to say or think the wrong thing and, be doomed for all eternity. So that was my relationship to religion and God. Didn't really have a relationship with Jesus, even though I was raised Christian. So it was that was kind of interesting looking back at it now. To me, it was just God and me, and whether I was doing enough to be good or whether I was going to do something really bad. And then, so that continued through my teens. Went to Catholic high school, continued to be afraid, wanted to do good, wanted to be good. But at the same time, I also wanted to do things like premarital sex. So I also wanted to do things that were very natural, that my body was telling me, yeah, you really should be doing this. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why I stepped away from that faith, so that I could, without the cognitive dissonance. And then when I went to Boston University, I also learned about, in these Greek and Roman myth classes, about all these other civilizations throughout history who had books and stories and similar myths. Now I know they're not really myths, but that are in the Bible. Most cultures talked about the flood, the great flood, and there were some that talked about having a savior that was killed and then reborn 3 days later. And so there were all these things. There were more examples than just those, where I'm hearing these things, and I'm, for the first time, because there was like no other awareness that I had other than Catholicism. That was all I knew. So that also contributed to the loss of my faith. And I just went through my 20s most of the time just not thinking about it. Just did not want to confront my beliefs. At some point, I remember thinking, do I still believe in Jesus? And I was like, yeah, I do. But that was it. That was like the end of the thought. But then I became an atheist, and that wasn't fun either. So the fear of God became the fear of annihilation, just a death that meant I no longer existed. So I didn't like thinking about all that stuff. I liked thinking. I liked thinking deep thoughts, but when they led to the possibility of annihilation, it wasn't something I wanted to continue thinking. So then came Tony Robbins' Personal Power 2, which I was told to listen to by a boss I had. And the final interview in that series was with Deepak Chopra. So at the time, I'm really into my raw foods and eating organic and not going to doctors, not going to dentists, not taking drugs of any kind for anything. And so I was really into the body's natural ability to heal itself. That was something I totally believed in. And as I listened to Deepak, it was clear that after being a medical doctor in Boston, where I went to school, he realized he didn't want to be a glorified drug pusher. He wanted to help people heal themselves, and he rediscovered the Ayurvedic principles and his Indian roots, and started practicing and teaching those instead of the Western medical model, which is give you a drug. Oh, you have side effects. Here's another drug. Oh, now your liver's messed up from all these drugs. Here's another drug. So Deepak talks a lot about the quantum universe, right? And just the way the universe works, the Heisenberg principle, all these things. And me, the thinker, the logical mind guy, which I've always been, was awakened from in that way. And then, so I went from not believing in anything to believing in an intelligent universe, a source of all things, that we are infinite, eternal beings. So I woke up. I was probably 27, 28 at the time. There she is. There's Kalyandra. And from there, I just started reading everybody, listening to everybody, Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, Yogananda, Eckhart Tolle. I loved Deepak. I loved Conversations with God. And then I eventually got to the books. Conversations with God were channeled. He did channeled writing at first, and then he started hearing a little voice in his head. This is Neil Donald Walsh. So I didn't think of them as channeled until I spoke to a spiritual teacher of mine that I had met, shortly after I had awakened. And she said, "Oh, you like channeled material then?" So she turned me on to these books called the Manuals books. I read those. There are only 3 of them. There was a blurb on the back about Seth material, so then I got into Seth books, which I loved. I still think Seth and Jane Roberts are the best of all time. Such a huge, hi there, little girl, such a huge amount of information and so many beautiful philosophies and things that Seth brought through in those Seth books. And now there's even more now that they started publishing the personal sessions. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. So I was really into the Seth books, and then I'd go on these Seth message forums and met someone who said, "Hey, you should check out Abraham." I kept hearing about this Abraham character. So I started checking out Abraham. I started my own meetup group with other people interested in the work of Abraham and Esther. And then I started going to the workshops and talking to Abraham. I spoke to Abraham a total of 17 times in the years I would go to these workshops. I would go to tons of them, to the point where people would see me on a DVD in Phoenix and then see me on a DVD in, hey, don't do that, that's the microphone. See me on a DVD in Asheville and think, who is this guy? What is he, a billionaire? What are Jerry and Esther just paying him to show up at these events and ask questions? Somebody actually wrote that on an Amazon review of one of their DVDs, and then Jerry kind of through another person asked me if I would go on there and say, no, I'm not that guy, or that's not what this is about. But anyway, what it was about for me is more of the awakening experience I had. There's Caliandra. You can see her face a little. Had the awakening experience, and then of course that's not an invitation for you. Then I wanted more, of course, but I didn't. No. I didn't ever think that I was going to be a channel. That was not on my radar at all. But then I was on an Abraham cruise and I was doing Reiki on someone, and I felt energy in my body for the first time. I felt a surge. I'd only done Reiki a handful of times. I had a Reiki 1 attunement. But after that experience, I thought, I want to do some more of this. So I started doing Reiki on my massage therapist, and she would come to give me a massage in my home, and I'd do Reiki on her first. And I noticed that my hands would move by themselves. So somebody asked me in the comments here, hopefully this person is going to watch this video, how do you know you're channeling? And that's a very long conversation, but the first thing that kind of clued me into the fact that this was something I was going to do was hands moving off of a person's body by themselves, where I would just watch this happen, and then across her body like this, and then stop and go back down, and then the other one would come up. Then my head started going like this by itself. And then I started moving my lips like that. Once my lips started moving by themselves and I'm making whispering noises, I'm thinking, well, I'm probably going to channel. That's probably what's happening here. This is in around January, maybe February of 2010. I keep doing Reiki on people, distance Reiki. I'm not even asking for permission. I don't really think you have to ask for permission to send someone love, which is essentially all you're doing when you're setting out to send someone healing energy. But I would do that. I would send people energy and do Reiki on whoever I could, whenever I could. And then early March, I think it must have been March 1st, I had a lot of pain in my body, and I had a job, a business where I had to move boxes around, and I'd get in more pain, and I was in a marriage I didn't want to be in. So I had a lot of emotional pain, a lot of physical pain at that time. And I became suicidal. I wanted to commit suicide. But I couldn't. I couldn't do that to my now ex-wife, because her brother had committed suicide just like a year before. So I don't know if I would have gone through with it under any circumstances, honestly, but that's how distraught I was. That's how much pain I was in physically and emotionally. And so that happened, and I had a good cry, and I said, I don't want to be here, and all that stuff, had my real dark night of the soul. And then, not that night, but the following night was the night I had my alien/ET encounter that I talk about in another video where I'm wearing the same shirt. So you can watch that one. It doesn't take that long to describe it. So I have a dream. In the dream, I see someone who I know believes in the significance of ETs and all that to humanity, whereas I don't. I don't see it as, I think they're real, I just don't think they matter at this point in my life. So when I see this guy in the dream, and I also know this guy through Abraham workshops, by the way, and I see him in the dream, and I said to him, I understand now about the other beings. And that was it. That was the whole dream. So I wake up from that dream, and I start feeling energy coming in through my crown, moving all the way through my body, and it's complete and utter ecstasy. It's nothing like anything I've ever felt before or after. And so I'm just going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, as it's happening. And then I'm saying, more please, more please. And then I start to think, and I think, what does this have to do with that dream? And I think, I wonder if this has anything to do with the aliens. And then as soon as I thought the word aliens, they sent me a huge surge of energy. So I just kept thinking the word aliens over and over again. And then I started saying one more time, just one more time to them. And of course it was never enough. I always wanted more. And then I started asking them questions. So I'm asking questions like, are you aliens? And the answer would be yes. And I'd get a surge of energy moving through me when the answer was yes. When the answer was no, I would get nothing. So because I was in such physical pain, I thought, well, maybe they're here just because I've been asking so much for this healing that I need. Maybe that's why they're here. So I'd ask, are you here to fix me? Nothing. Then I'd ask, are you here to play with me? And the answer would be yes. So this went on, and then for a while, and then I took my eye mask off that I was sleeping with, and I thought maybe I can see them in the room. Open my eyes. As soon as I open my eyes, energy starts flooding in again, just like it did at the beginning. And then with my eyes open, I don't know how much longer it lasted. I don't know how long this whole episode lasted, but that was it. It ended. And so there was a expiration date on that ecstasy experience. But I wanted more. I knew I could feel now more in my physical body, that nothing had to happen. Nothing had to be happening to me other than, a little ET intervention. But I knew that I could get that feeling back if I focused. So then I'm already meditating now for 10 years every day, and long meditations. But I start doing more. I start doing 2.5 hour meditations, getting to the point where I can give myself goosebumps all over my body at any time that I want to, and never being able to replicate the experience with the ETs exactly. So this is March 2010. It doesn't fix my pain in my body. So I'm still trying to heal myself at the same time. And I'm able to access all this energy and move all this energy through me. So I would do that on occasion with that intention of healing my body. And a few times I would get so much energy moving through me that I'd start to, like I was going to throw up. what we call in the United States, we call it dry heaving, but nothing comes out. So this happens a few times. Again, I'm still because of the Reiki stuff and everything, I'm still thinking maybe I'm going to channel, and I'd sit with a friend and say, get a question ready or something, and we'll see if I can channel for you. Nothing would happen. So then I go to an Abraham workshop in October of that year, 2010. And I am sitting there on the first day of the Asheville workshop, and I have that dry heave experience because I'm really tuning in to the energy in the room and what Esther's bringing through. Oh, it's 11:11 in Hawaii. And I have to stop myself because I don't want to be a distraction to what's going on there for everyone else. You know, everyone else is there to see Esther channel Abraham, not to see Daniel Scranton dry heave. So I put a stop to it, and then I talked to my friends about it after, and they said, hey, maybe you are going to channel. Why don't we sit around in a circle around you and see if we can pull it through? We'll ask questions. So we did that night. And all I would do, I'd sit there and I'd go like this. No words coming out, but a lot of weird facial expressions and movements. So then they're like, okay, you got to ask Abraham about this. And I'd already been in the hot seat so many times. That's what they call it at Abraham workshops. When you talk to Abraham, you're in the hot seat. So I figured, yeah, there's a good possibility I'll get called on tomorrow. The next day, my friend is in the hot seat, and she's talking about things that are like really synchronistic to what I've been experiencing. And I'm sitting there watching my hand raise itself as she's talking to Abraham, and really slowly. So I'm moving it faster than it was. It was probably moving at like this speed. And then she gets out of the hot seat, and chills just fill my body. I guess I just knew it was going to happen. So they call on me. I get up there. I start telling my story. They knew part of the story. They knew the ET story. Although Abraham doesn't really talk about ETs very much. So I think I left the part about them being aliens out of that story when I told them. But I'd been going to their workshops for 5 years at this point, and they knew me. Esther knew me. So Abraham basically gives me the green light, says, yes, do it, channel, keep practicing, keep working through that resistance in your body, because that's what that is. That's why you're experiencing the dry heaves. So I was like, good, I'll do that. I go back to LA and where I lived, and I'm Skyping with my then girlfriend who lived in London, and we're working on it. Like, she's sitting there, and I did wind up getting a divorce from that that first wife. That happened around 3 months after, like 3.5 months after the big nighttime download experience. I don't know, maybe that gave me the courage to say something, to speak up and say, hey, I'm not happy. But as soon as that marriage ended, it's like I met this woman right away on an Abraham cruise, and it was one of those, kind of rebound relationships where it was great at first, and then anyway, she helped me to become a channel. So, I'll always be grateful for that. She sat there. She'd be in London on her computer. I'd be in LA on mine, and I'd be doing the whole, energy moving through me, nothing coming out. And I don't know how many weeks this went on for. We would Skype 4 times a week. And so eventually I spoke. I spoke for the creators the first time. they said, "We are here for you." And then I don't know what else they said after that. I don't remember. But that's how the channeling started. After channeling the creators for a good solid, I think, 3 years, and only the creators. And it took me a while to even get that name, the creators. And, I questioned it. I doubted myself in answer to the question, how do you know you're channeling? I certainly went through those experiences of, what if I'm just making it all up? I don't know if this is real. It seems like it's not. But at the same time, I can't explain the movements. I can't explain the feeling of energy in my body. I have no other explanation for it. And the "we are here for you" I always knew that was channeled. And then everything else after that I would question, which I think is healthy. I think there's a healthy amount of skepticism that we should all have. Jane Roberts definitely had it. And like I said, she was the best, in my opinion. So I started channeling Ophelia the Fairy 3 years after I started channeling the creators. And Ophelia, comes through me in a female voice. That's another way to sort of know you're not just making that up. I'm not going to pretend that that I have a female voice all of a sudden. It's so convincing that if people hear my channeling of Ophelia, they will definitely be shocked and surprised to find out that it's me doing it. Not that I have the deepest voice of all time, but I definitely don't. But I don't sound like Ophelia the Fairy either when I talk. So knowing that you're not, one of the ways, there's so many things I want to say about this. Like knowing that I'm not consciously speaking in the plural, we, our, us, all that plural that the creators and other guides that I channel speak in. I don't do that. If I were making that up, I would have to be so conscious and aware to always be speaking in that plural pronoun way. And then wait. So I skipped the light language thing. So the light language thing happened 6 months after I was channeling the creators. Girlfriend from London was out of the picture at this point. And I started to, enjoy my bachelorhood and just do the things that I wanted to do. And so I started getting massages regularly. These are legitimate massages now. These are real, like a real massage. But I always loved getting massage, so I started going to this place where I'd get massage, and I eventually developed feelings for the woman who was giving me massage, and she was Wiccan and clairvoyant. She could see things in the room. I was moving around all the time on the table, because the movements that you see when I channel. I mean, I've always been a big mover when I channel, so I'd be moving around on the table. She'd be seeing things all over the room, and one day I just started to channel this light language. It was a very unique light language. It was words like anakana, nikana, nuka. So there'd be a lot of N's, K's, and vowels in the words. And after that first time that I channeled those on the massage table, I was embarrassed. Even though she knew I was a channel, I was still self-conscious about it. She was like, "What was that?" Afterwards, I said, "I don't know." I went home. I got violently ill. This was May 21st. I always remember. May 21st, 2011, the day that this televangelist guy was saying the world was going to end. So there were billboards all over LA about the world ending, and I channeled the light language on that day and got so sick that I actually wanted to die as I was on the bathroom floor. So there's some connection there, obviously. So that's another thing. I didn't even know about light languages. Now, if you're speaking a light language, you could say, well, maybe I'm making it up because I know about light languages. I didn't know about light languages. I certainly didn't think it was, like I said, I was embarrassed about it, to be doing this in front of this woman that I had feelings for. Nothing ever materialized there. She had a boyfriend. So that's how the light language started. And then I'm going to say a year, maybe right around a year later, is when the tones came. The tones are channeled. The overtones. The very first time I did that, I did not know how to do that. So it was one of those times when I was going into the channeling state to get the creators, because at that time I was only channeling the creators in 2012. So I didn't know how to overtone. I had a voice coach. She taught me singing because the creators told me early on to sing and ring. So I eventually went and got singing lessons, voice lessons. We would tone, but my voice coach didn't know how to overtone herself. She certainly didn't know how to teach me how to do it. So when they came that first time, it was a surprise. It was a definite surprise for me. And for Kimberly as well. She wasn't there. Kimberly was my voice coach. She wasn't there that first time it happened, but it was amazing. So again, some of this stuff, as much as I've questioned in my past, whether any of this was real, that I could not have faked. I didn't know how to do it. My mouth suddenly knew how to make those sounds. The creators, they're the ones moving my body, moving my head, changing my voice. The creators speak in a much deeper voice than I do. That's not something, if I were consciously putting that voice on, I would know that I was. I would feel the inauthentic way that was happening, and I wouldn't like it. I almost quit channeling early on because, and this was before I was making my living at it. This was early on, because I didn't know if it was real, and I didn't, I want to be authentic. I want people, I don't want to deceive anyone. And when I look at most, I never look at someone who's channeling and think that person's not really channeling. I never think that. I don't. So here's what I do think sometimes. I'll be honest. Sometimes I think there's a lot of that channel in that channeling. There's a lot of distortion. There's a lot of filter. All these things can happen during any channeling. But I don't think anyone's setting out to deceive other people into believing that they're channeling. I've never seen a single person where I've thought that. But are some channels better than others? Yeah. Some channeling is better because that person is better at removing themselves from the channeling. They're more practiced at bringing the energies through that they're channeling. You know, Daryl Anka's been doing it for 35, I don't even know how many years, 36 maybe. He's really good at bringing through Bashar. He's been doing it for 36 years. I've been doing it for almost 9 now. So I'm getting better all the time. That's the other thing about channeling is it's like anything. You get better the more you do it. You get better at riding a bike the more you get your balance. You get better at playing an instrument. You get better at playing a sport the more you do it. And just like, you know, Michael Jordan, considered the best basketball player of all time, he could have an off night. He could have a night where he, you know, shot the ball really poorly, and who knows what was going on for him that day, that he was on the court, and what he was feeling and how that affected him. And the same is true for channels. I mean, I was thinking about it before I was thinking about making this video, and I was thinking of analogies, and you know, it does take a tremendous amount of focus to channel. It is like being a brain surgeon. It really is like being a rocket scientist in some ways, because you have got to be on your game to do it. And if you're not, the channeling will reflect that. So it's not, people want everything to be super black and white. So to the person who asks in the comments, how do you know you're channeling? I know I'm channeling it. I know I'm not perfect too. I know I don't always get everything right and everything perfect as it was meant to be. Because there's a human element to channeling. When I used to go to those Abraham workshops, sometimes Abraham would say, you know, Esther used to ask us, how am I doing? How am I doing at translating you and speaking for you? And Abraham would always say to Esther, you're doing great, you're doing fantastic, it's awesome. But Abraham knew that she would get better, is what they say in these workshops, that it wasn't the best that she would ever be. And I'm not the best I'll ever be at this right now. I'll get better because I'll keep doing it, because I didn't give up when I really wanted to give up on this, as not even as a thing I was doing. Like I said, I wasn't doing it for a living then, and I still thought I should just give up because I don't know if I believe in myself enough. And you know, people who believe in themselves in other areas of their lives are probably better at believing themselves in when they go to channel as well. You carry all of that stuff into this channeling world as it is. So all the other beings that have come since Ophelia, you know, Ophelia came because would be walking in the woods, and I'd say, oh, I really feel the fairies around. I want to channel a fairy. And then, you know, the tones came, and then Ophelia came, and I just liked it. I just liked the way it felt, like the way she felt. There's a story behind every being that I've ever. I don't really remember a huge story behind the Arcturian Council, other than I had thought about channeling Arcturians for a long time. and then they came through me, and then I got together with my wife. She and I have been together for over 3 years now, and when she and I got together, shortly thereafter, they started coming through her too. But there's always more. There's always more to become. There's always more to channel, and I'm happy that I survived this journey and all the ups and downs of it, and I'm glad to be here now, doing what I do, and that there are people out there that it resonates with, as the Arcturian said in the most recent transmission. It either resonates or it doesn't. I raise my vibration to do this. That's the best way to know that you're getting something that is high vibrational, that is of value to others, is by putting yourself in a higher vibrational state and then just seeing what it is that you connect with and what it is you bring through. And sometimes you will doubt it if you want to channel, if this is something you want to do. Sometimes it will feel more real than others. What can I say? That's my story. And those are my feelings on channeling in general. I also have felt on this journey that the perfect person, the perfect teacher has always shown up for me. So when I needed Deepak to be the one to use that logic to convince me that there was something more going on here in the universe, that's who I had. And then I needed channeled material, and I needed to go sit at those Abraham workshops and receive the transmissions that Esther would bring through. I needed Nora Harold and Wendy Kennedy to sort of take me under their wings and let me know that what I was doing was real. And after I had my ET experience, I needed Daryl and Bashar to help me understand what all that was about, what the whole relationship with ETs was. And I've been really blessed, I have to say. Been really, really blessed, and I appreciate all the steps along the way and all the people that have been a part of my journey, and I'm very happy to be where I am right now with my little cat sitting on the table next to me, because she's just so awesome. And my wife sleeping in the next room. It's a good life. Just keep living it. Keep living, keep loving, and everything will work out in the long run. Even when you feel those moments of being suicidal and you don't see any possible way out of your situation. It does happen. So thank you, everyone, for spending all this time listening to me and my story. It's my origin story right there. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful to you in some way and helps you believe in yourself more. I want everyone to live a beautiful life and to be empowered. So, blessings. Sending lots of love here from Maui. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.